Hi, this is Rahman Sheikh. Welcome to Fortnightly Railway Transportation Systems podcast. I am the host and railway systems specialist working in this industry for 24 years and counting. This podcast is primarily focused on railway experts who have vast amount of experience and contributed greatly to this amazing industry. This is not a technical seminar but focuses on feel good stories, individual journeys, their success and failures, motivating younger generation to kickstart their career in railways and creating a sense of pride for the railway people who devoted their lives on the most environment friendly public transportation. Our guest for this fortnight is Raphaelle Guerineau, Country Chief Executive Officer, Australia and New Zealand for Siemens Mobility. Raphaelle has an MBA from Telecom Business School from Paris. She started her professional career as product manager in Orange. Raphaelle brings around 20 plus years of experience into transportation industry. Hi Raphael, welcome to Railway Transportation Systems podcast. Thank you for joining and agreeing to spend some time sharing your insights with us.
Thanks, Ryman. Thanks for having me. I'm very glad to be here to be able to talk about my experience.
Raphael, it's my generic question. So my first question would be, can you tell us about your professional transport industry journey so far, please?
Yes, absolutely. So I think, probably we can say, like a lot of people, I arrived in the railway industry a bit by chance. So what happened is that after I've completed university, was back in France, in Paris. I started my career and I've done the first 6 years in various industry, more in corporate services, marketing or strategy role. But I've done telecom, I've done other technology company. And after 6 years, what happened is that my husband got offered a role in Singapore with his company. So at the time, it was quite funny because I got offered a role in the US, in Chicago, by the company I was working with, and he had at the same time this role in Singapore. So it was already an interesting choice that we had to make. And I have to say, it was also by chance we decided Singapore because we were more attracted with the warm weather of Singapore. So we decided to move to Singapore. And myself, I had to leave the job I was having at the time, and we arrived in Singapore. And I looked for another job in Singapore. And again, by chance, networking, I joined the Alstom. So, the French network helped me when I arrived in Singapore. And that's how I joined the railway industry. So I first started with a role in marketing and strategy again, which was, I was doing before. So I was the strategy manager for the region Asia Pacific for Alstom. And that's how I started my transportation, experience, and this was back in 2006. So I spent then 13 years in Singapore. So first with Alstom, then I moved to Siemens. So from my first role as a strategy manager, I went into project management role. Then I did some tendering roles, head of projects role. And after that, I got an opportunity to move to Australia. And at the time, I have to say that it was really interesting. I had two children. Two of our children were born in Singapore, and they were reaching an age where we thought it would be good for them to see something else than Singapore. Singapore was fantastic, really, for when they were very young. It's everything is easy in Singapore. It's very well organized. And we had all the supports for the kids as well. But going towards the teenager year, we thought that it would be good also to have some development. So when I had this opportunity to move to Australia, we thought it would be great. So I was first the head of products for Siemens Mobility for the region, the ASEAN Pacific. And 3 years ago or so, I was offered the role of the country CEO, and here I am.
Yeah, you're doing great. What a career diversity, Rafael. So looking back, I see that before you joining Siemens in 2011, as you said, you worked in various other sectors apart from railways. So looking into it, what do you think is your most career highlights so far?
Career highlights. I think what I would say is that, I explained, so when I joined the railway industry in 2006, so I joined Alstom, and after having done also 3 years of role in strategy, which I would say more corporate services. I was offered by Alstom the chance to go into projects. And this, I would say, was a fantastic experience. And that's what really launched my career, in the railway industry, because as you know, projects is at the heart of the railway industry, and especially for technology company like Alstom or even Siemens today. But it was really, I would say, a jump in the unknown. Huh? At the time, you can imagine, I had, so in total, almost 10 years of experience, but always in corporate services. And I joined a project. So it's a complex project. It was a turnkey project in Singapore for one of the metro line. And I joined as deputy project manager for the signaling portion of the Circle Line. But I had to learn everything. But I was really fortunate to be surrounded with very excellent people who really supported me all the way. So the project management aspects came quite quickly because with also all the studies I had done in business and engineering, this was less of an issue. But learning, especially signaling, is a complex part of the railway industry. It's very, very technical.
I agree.
But I loved it. Really, I loved every minute of it. It was you need at the minimum to understand the technology, and I was surrounded with engineers that were really really great. That taught me a lot of things. And thanks to this, 6 months after I started, I became from a deputy project manager. I became a project manager. And again, this was what really launched my career. So this project management experience, I mean, if I can advise to anyone, it's just if you're in the railway industry, take project experience, delivery experience. It's so important. It's at the heart of our of what we do every day. Huh?
Yep, that really stands out, Raphael, and I really like the way you touch signaling because myself, I'm a chartered professional signal engineer. So, looking back into your role, you got such a busy calendar and schedule. So, what does a typical day in the life of CEO at Siemens Mobility looks like?
I would say definitely too many meetings. I mean, usually, it's meetings every day from morning to evening. So I'm working with my EA to make sure that there is also now, a little bit of time that the meetings are not always back to back because it's always difficult otherwise to end a meeting and be on time for the next one. But yeah, lots of meeting. I always put priority. So it's customer meetings, internal meetings. Of course, always putting the priority on customer meetings. But there's also internal meetings needs to lots of alignment in a company like Siemens because it's a matrix organization. So we have all the country function, but we have certain functions that where we have to link with headquarter functions. Lots of approval decisions to be made. It's really a mix, I would say, during the day between strategic activity and more operational activity. And depending on the day, of course, the preference is to do for my role is to be able to spend more time, on the strategic activity than the operational activity. But sometimes there's escalation on certain projects that are very strategic where I need to be involved too.
Yeah. I know recently I read about you, I think it's Women in Engineering, where you're telling that you like to be challenged. And yeah, it's a very frenetic schedule or I should say a chaotic schedule. Apart from all that, I think being busy increases your energy, more productivity, improved creativity, mental alertness. Most important in this COVID time, being busy make you staying positive. So, Raphael, I really like the way you bringing the values into the industry coming from other sectors. If you could change one thing about our railway industry, what it would be?
So I think I will answer about, and now, about our specificity about the Australian market. If I could change one thing is really about more standardization in the requirements, between different states and different customers. Because, at the moment also there's a global, I would say worldwide shortage of resource. And we have the same problem, in the Australia and New Zealand markets. And the fact that we have different standards per state, per customer makes it much more complicated to train people, to make sure that they have the relevant competency that are required. So, and here it's across the industry. So we talked about signaling, rolling stock is the same, traction power, really standardization. And I know it's not easy in a federal state like Australia. But if I would have a wish, it would be this, because I think it will allow a lot more innovation, on the Australian markets. To be able to focus the people on actually innovation and not deployment or and thinking about the various standards and execution in the different places. And also it will ease the stress on the resource that we have.
100%, you hit the bullseye. What an answer. I really like that. We need to address that. I particularly personally I believe that we need to do a universal competency framework where the person can go into any state and work and not start from the
Yeah,
scratch. Like in UK we got IRSC, something we need to standardize.
exactly. I know certain countries don't like to use standard from overseas, but if you take, for example, the European railway market, is so developed and there's a lot of standards that have been defined over there. That would be easier rather than saying, oh no, we choose, the New South Wales standards or the Victoria standard. Compared to some of the international standards is probably the way to go, because then, there's also more synergy on the preparation
Yeah.
of that.
Completely agree. I think this is pretty good idea. I wish we could all end up implementing this. So, I understand you are a mentor as part of ARA mentoring program, Australian Railway Association. What advice do you have for young female professionals in rail industry?
Yeah, so indeed, it's a mentorship program for women in rail. So I've got a young mentee that I'm mentoring at the moment. But that's what I say, and I do it as well. Within Siemens, I would say the most important is be bold. Generally speaking, women are known to be less demanding. In their career and career development, they're a bit more shy and don't want to express necessarily their needs or what they would like to do or what they want to do. But the great thing that's happening in the industry, I would say, since the last 5 years and even more the last 2 years, is that there's such a recognition of the importance of diversity in general, gender, but in general of diversity, that there's lots of opportunity out there for women. So don't hesitate. Be bold in and demanding on what you would like to do. Express your interest, because yes, there's lots of opportunity, and you should be able to seize them.
Yeah, sure. Because recently, I know the rail industry is predominantly male dominant. In the recent article from Engineers Australia, I learned that there are only 13% of women workforce. So I was thinking, how can women support women in rail
Yeah,
industry?
no, it's important, but and I think we make a lot of progress in the more traditional roles for women. Generally in the financial topics, HR, communication, and all that. But the focus is on non-traditional roles, which are more technical roles. And here, there's a few things that can be done. But networking activities are really important. Mentoring, we talked about it. How we
Yeah.
can help women develop themselves. There's also sharing stories, similarly to what I've just said. But the really important one, and one that I'm trying to advocate that we focus more, is working on the pipeline. Because the biggest issue that we have today is having more women out there. Because today, there's already lots of constraint on the resource, and in this pool of resource, there's not also enough women. So what we need is really build the pipeline. My daughter at the moment, she's in year 9, so starting to make decision. In year 10, they need to start making decision for what they're going to do in year 11 and 12. And I'm really surprised, that there's not more program for kids at this age to explain to them what are the in the industry of the futures, or in the next 20 to 30 years where there's going to be more work. So it's not just, of course, about the railway industry. It's general infrastructure in Australia, healthcare, you can say the software industry. But we need really to bring more visibility, in the for the younger generation, really starting from high school onwards, and also kill some myths. And your question was also a bit more specifically about women. Kill some
Yeah.
myths about women, in STEM area. Because generally speaking, or in the past, it was seen as more male roles. And here it's important that really there's some dialogue and questions, that we should have more and more interventions, in high school, to say, it's great. The STEM roles are not nothing that a woman cannot do. It's not
Agree.
a question of strengths or anything, and women are as capable as are doing it. And as I said, the diversity is so important in the work environment. There's so many opportunities for women in STEM area that it's just a shame that we are not promoting this more, and to the younger generation.
What a vital points you have brought up, Raphael. I really like it. Thank you. You've been working with Siemens Mobility. So in this, how you supporting diversity in your organization?
So yeah, it's as I said, there's a very big focus in Siemens, and I would say myself, as you can imagine, I'm also a very big advocate, because I have to say, in the role I'm in, the non-traditional role, and there's not a lot of women country CEO around the world. So it's extremely important, and for me, and it's dear to my heart. So we have recently created a diversity and inclusion council, in the organization, to have ideas of things that we can do. And again, I want to introduce having also some more talks in the schools. Of course, we have targets, for recruitment, whether we're talking about graduates level or all the recruitments, to try and promote diversity. Having some panel interviews, where ensuring that there's a woman, in the panel, because it can also have an impact, on the perception during the interview. So those are the things that we do. We are fortunate that in Siemens Mobility in Australia, in my executive team, out of 7 people, there's 3 women and 2 in non-traditional roles. So myself and my head of engineering is also a woman. So I think leading by example and showing this is also important, for the rest of the organization, and encouraging the younger generation and the younger women we have in the organization to grow and to help them. And of course, I would say we have the things we have introduced, like what we call the new normal, the hybrid working, being able to work from home as well as from the office, or other things in the HR area, like having equal rights, for parental leave between men and women. We are putting all this in place as well.
Great. See, Raphael, you covered Siemens. Now, I know you worked in various different countries across the world. And do you think that has influenced your career? And can we see this getting implemented globally, not just within Siemens?
Absolutely. I think, working in different countries is an excellent teaching ground. And the key things you are learning is that different is good. Myself, I was the same. When I finished university, I had lived all my life, in France. My first international experience was in the UK, in London. Then I moved to Singapore, and now I'm in Australia. But also, I love travels, also for holidays, and that's why it's great to see that when you are just in one country, you see the things are done in one way. When you go in another country, you discover that things can be done differently, and sometimes for the best, or sometimes not for the best. But that's where you open up really your mind, and that you see that you need to challenge things, challenge the existing, and that it's always good. We talk about the growth mindset, about challenging the ways of working, and you can learn a lot of things. So it's really opening up your mind. And I think spending time overseas is really fantastic for this reason.
Even I've been doing that same thing. And you get to meet lots of good mentors and good teachers, sponsors, great intellectuals. So, in all this, have you ever met any biggest influencer in your career so far?
Look, I'm very lucky that my biggest and strongest supporter has always been my husband. Also having not in the same industry, but also similar roles, and he's my biggest supporter and even mentor. Huh? I'm using him as a good sparring partner to check lots of things. And of course, you need also, if I think about it, during all the managers I had in my time, I would not be here today without their support and the development. Huh?
Raphael, how hard or how easy it is for a woman from a different cultural background coming into a different country and stepping up from project manager to CEO?
I would say, in the end, there's no magic formula. The most important is the performance in your role. And I think this is always a very important principle. It's not the question of favoring a woman because, a woman is better than a man. Performance is the most important. So you need to focus on your performance and be successful in your performance. After, what is true is that the railway business is a bit of a boys' club. And we talked about unconscious bias, and sometimes it plays in it. And that's why what I was saying before, when you asked me about an advice to the younger generation and the woman, being bold and demanding is the most important, because otherwise you have a risk of stagnating and staying where you are if you are not expressing that you're interested to develop, to do other things, to move to other countries. This is really the most important. So myself, because I've never hesitated, or I would say it's not true. Maybe the first 5 or 6 years of my career, I was young and you don't really know, probably not doing it as much as I should have done. But after, and especially after my experience in projects, I was really fortunate to my career got accelerated a lot and had lots of opportunity, to build other blocks in my career to arrive now in the position of CEO.
You really did well, Raphael. So, what is your vision for the next 5 years then?
So what I would love, and we talked about it, the resourcing constraints is the biggest bottleneck that we have in the industry today. So international level and Australia, it's a really important one. And that's why for me, it's not all about just training new people. It's also about looking at the optimization of the way we work. And that's one of the things we have done, for example, since I've taken the role here in Australia. We have times two the size of the business, and it's not just about increasing by the number of people we have. Is looking at ways we can work more efficiently, standardize more the ways of working. And as I've mentioned before, if we could have more standardization also in the customer standards and the customer requests, that would be great. The other thing is the potential for the digitalization and the change in the industry that we can see. Today I would say the technology is no limit. Traditionally speaking, in the railway business, we have a bit of a conservative approach because there's so many safety system, and for safety system, the implementation of innovations and new things takes time because you need to ensure that it's also fully safe. But today, the technological advancement have been so great in the past 5 years, and everything that can be done thanks to digitalization is really amazing. So I think in the next 5 years, we're going to see this coming more and more, being able to really show to the industry everything that can be done, either for extension, of the life cycle of the equipment, optimization for the end customers, either if it's the information level for the passengers that they are getting, we call it, mobility as a service, or optimization of the throughput or the getting information and ensuring that the public transports are optimized, or the load is optimized. There's really so many things that can be done. It's really, the potential is great. And finally, we talked about it, more and more diversity in the industry. coming back to have a true reflection also of the society
Yeah.
would be great.
Thanks, Rafael. Recently, I want to bring one point because you touched a point called innovation. So, while traveling, I picked a book called Jugaad. It's a Hindi word for innovation. So, I think it's a 2012 edition. In that, they speak about bringing simple offerings from the ground up, and they talk about Siemens in that book. They say that it was founded in 1847 and it has 30,100 researchers with 4,300 patents in 2010 alone. It also talks about a product design strategy called SMART, and again they say that it has got around 15,500 R&D engineers. So, is this specific to India or these numbers are global numbers?
No, I think this is more specific to India. But Siemens is a very big company, as you may know. It's really a technology powerhouse. So you have Siemens Mobility, that's a separate entity which is serving the railway markets. But there's also Siemens Energy. There's an healthcare part called Healthineers. And finally, we have a part about digital industry and smart infrastructure. So if you take Siemens overall, the number are much bigger. And even only Siemens Mobility, the number are larger as well. Because, in total, Siemens employee is more than 300,000.
Wow, such a great big company. Thanks, Rafael. It has been pleasure talking to you. You brought so much of topics into. You cleared innovation. You cleared diversity, women. I think Siemens is really lucky having you as CEO.
Thanks very much, Rahiman. Again, it was really my pleasure, and very pleased to be able to talk my experience and hoping that I can inspire some of the young generation.
You will. Thank you.
Thanks.
I believe everyone listening to this podcast has got something to take away from today's discussion. If you like this podcast, please listen, follow, and share this podcast within your network. If you believe we should be sharing your story or someone within your network, there is a railway leader who should be here sharing his or her contribution to this industry, contact me on railwaytransportationsystems@gmail.com. Thank you for your time today. See you next fortnight. Until then, stay safe and take care of yourself.